In a grand house that stood tall on a green hill lived Mr. Silas. He was a very old man, with hair as white as snow and eyes that had seen many, many years. Everyone knew Mr. Silas was very rich, with more money than anyone could count. But now, his grand house felt quiet, almost sad, because Mr. Silas was very, very sick. He stayed in his big bed, in a room filled with soft carpets and heavy curtains. The sun tried to peek through the windows, but even its bright light couldn't make the room feel less dim. Mr. Silas coughed often, a soft, dry sound that echoed in the stillness. His breath was shallow, and his once strong hands now lay weak on the fancy blankets. The house, usually bustling with helpers, now seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Even with the quiet sadness hanging in the air, there was a steady, warm presence in Mr. Silas's room. This was Elara, his kind helper. She wasn't just a helper. She was like a gentle shadow, always there, always ready. Her hands were soft when she smoothed his blankets, and her voice was a quiet hum when she spoke to him. Day and night, Elara watched over Mr. Silas. She brought him warm tea, fluffed his pillows just right, and read him stories from his favorite old books. She knew exactly when he needed a drink of water, or when he just needed someone to sit quietly by his side. Her heart was full of care for the old man, even though he was often too weak to speak much. She made sure he was comfortable, safe, and never alone in his big, quiet house. One quiet night, as the moon shone softly through the window, Elara sat by Mr. Silas's bed. She had just finished reading a chapter from his favorite adventure book. Mr. Silas had been quieter than usual, his eyes closed. Elara thought he was asleep. But then his eyelids fluttered open. His gaze, though weak, was clear and held a spark of something she hadn't seen in a long time. He slowly reached out a trembling hand, and Elara gently took it. His voice was a whisper, barely there, but full of a deep need. "Elara," he breathed, "I have a secret, a wish. It's the last thing I want before I go." His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Elara's heart felt a pang of sadness, but she squeezed his hand gently, letting him know she was listening. Mr. Silas took a slow, shaky breath. "It's about a locket," he whispered, his voice gaining a faint strength as he spoke of it. A very special locket. It was small, made of silver, with a tiny blue stone on it. Inside there was a picture of a young girl, smiling. His eyes seemed to look far away, remembering. It belonged to my true love, a girl named Lily. We were young, full of dreams, and the locket was her most prized possession. She gave it to me before we were separated. I lost it many, many years ago, when I was still a young man, full of foolish pride and adventure. It was the biggest regret of my life, losing her gift. A tear, clear as glass, rolled down his wrinkled cheek. After sharing his sad memory, Mr. Silas looked at Elara with a plea in his eyes. "Elara," he whispered, his voice trembling with the effort, "I need you to find it. Please. It's the only thing that can bring me peace now. It's a foolish old man's last wish, but it means everything." He squeezed her hand, a surprising strength in his weak grip. "Go and find that locket for me. No matter how far, no matter how hard it seems. Promise me you will try your very best. Promise me you will bring it back to me before it's too late." His gaze was fixed on her, full of hope and a desperate longing. Elara felt a deep ache in her heart. How could she say no to such a heartfelt plea? "But where is it?" Elara finally asked, her voice soft but firm. She wanted to help, but finding something lost for so long seemed like finding a needle in a haystack. Mr. Silas's eyes, however, held a flicker of certainty. "It's not just anywhere, Elara," he rasped. "I remember the place exactly. It's hidden in a secret spot, a place from my childhood, from before I became this old, rich man. A place only I knew about. A special little corner of the world that held all my young dreams." He closed his eyes for a moment, as if seeing it clearly in his mind. "It's far away, in the place where I grew up, on a tiny island. I put it there for safekeeping, foolishly thinking I would return soon. It's a very old secret, known only to me." Ilara looked at the old man's hopeful, yet fading, face. Her heart felt heavy with a mix of sadness for his fading life and the big task he was asking of her. A tiny island, a secret spot, a locket lost for ages. It sounded like a story from a book, not a real journey she was about to take. A sigh escaped her lips. It would be hard, maybe even impossible, but how could she refuse? Mr. Silas had been kind to her, and this was his last, deepest wish. Taking a deep breath, Ilara nodded. "I will find it for you, Mr. Silas," she said softly, her voice steady despite the worry in her heart. "I promise. I will bring your locket back." A weak, grateful smile touched Mr. Silas's lips, and a little bit of peace seemed to settle over him. With Ilara's promise, a new strength seemed to flicker in Mr. Silas. He slowly, carefully, moved his hand to the side of his bed. Tucked beneath his soft pillow, he found something wrapped in an old, silken cloth. He carefully unwrapped it. His fingers frail. Inside lay two things: a piece of faded, yellowed paper, crinkled at the edges, and a small, shiny key, made of what looked like old silver. The paper was clearly a map, drawn by hand long ago, with faded ink showing coastline and tiny marks. "This is it, Ilara," Mr. Silas whispered, holding them out. "The map to the island and to the secret spot. And this key, this opens what holds the locket." Ilara took the old treasures, feeling their age and the weight of their story in her hands. The key was cool and smooth, catching the dim light. Ilara gently smoothed out the old map. Its paper was thin and felt soft from age. The drawings on it were simple but clear, a rough outline of land surrounded by wavy lines marking the sea. There was a tiny, speck-like shape, smaller than her thumbnail, carefully drawn in the corner of the paper. This was the island. It looked very, very far away from Mr. Silas's grand house, almost at the edge of the world. On the map, little X's and faded words marked special places, like a small village, a winding path, and then a dot with a circle around it right on the coast. This was it, the place Mr. Silas had called his childhood home, the place where his young dreams lived. It was a secret world he had kept hidden for so long. With the map and keys safely tucked away, Ilara knew she couldn't waste a moment. The journey ahead was long and uncertain, but Mr. Silas's fading hope spurred her on. She went to her small room, a quiet space within the grand house. There, she chose only the most important things: a few changes of clothes, a sturdy pair of shoes, a small bottle of water, and a simple compass. She rolled the ancient map carefully and put it, along with the shiny key, into a safe pocket. Her bag was small, just big enough for her needs, light enough to carry far. She knew she might face many challenges, but her promise to Mr. Silas felt like a warm, strong shield. With a deep breath, Ilara was ready. The next morning, Ilara quietly left the grand house. Her journey started with a train ride to a bustling port city, a place she had never seen before. The air smelled of salt and fish, and big ships with tall masts lined the docks. She found the ship that would take her across the vast ocean, a sturdy cargo boat named the Seeker. It was much bigger than anything she had ever seen. Climbing aboard, Ilara felt a mix of excitement and a little bit of fear. The ship's horn blew a deep sound, and soon the land began to shrink behind them. For days, she watched the endless blue water, the sky stretching wide above. The rocking of the boat became a familiar feeling as the Seeker pushed onward, carrying Ilara closer and closer to the tiny, faraway island on Mr. Silas's map. Finally, after many days, the tiny island appeared on the horizon, a green jewel in the blue sea. Ilara felt a surge of hope. The ship docked in a small, sleepy harbor, and Ilara stepped onto the sandy shore. The air was warm and smelled of salt and sweet flowers. She saw a few small houses and fishing boats. As she walked into the tiny village, she met some of the islanders. They were kind, with wrinkled faces and friendly smiles. Ilara showed them a faded picture of a young Mr. Silas, which she had found among his old things. An old woman, with eyes as bright as the sea, gasped. "Silas! Little Silas! Grown so old?" she said. Soon, other old folks gathered, remembering the boy who had left their island so many years ago. They welcomed Elara, eager to hear about their long-lost islander. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with colors of orange and pink, Elara sat with the old islanders around a crackling fire. They shared their simple food and, in hushed voices, began to tell stories about young Silas. He was a lively boy, an old fisherman named Thomas chuckled, always dreaming of faraway lands. Then, a soft-spoken woman, Martha, added, but his heart belonged to Lily. Oh, she was a beautiful girl, with hair like sunshine and eyes like the sea. They spoke of how Silas and Lily were always together, how they loved the secret coves and climbed the highest cliffs. Everyone thought they would marry, Martha sighed. They were meant to be. Then Silas left, promising to return for her, and she waited and waited. Elara listened carefully, each story adding to the picture of the young love Mr. Silas had lost, making the locket even more precious. The next morning, with the sun bright and warm, Elara set out. The stories from the islanders had given her a clearer picture, and she held the old map carefully in her hand. It was more than just lines on paper. It was a guide to a hidden past. She walked along the winding paths, past small fields and rocky beaches, matching what she saw to the faded drawings. A tall old lighthouse marked on the map was easy to find. Then a path that twisted like a snake led her deeper into the island's wilder parts. She looked for a special rock, shaped like a sleeping giant, and a cluster of 3 palm trees that grew very close together. Each clue was a tiny victory, guiding her closer to the secret spot Mr. Silas had spoken of, a place where his young heart once hid a precious treasure. Following the last clues on the map, Elara found herself at the edge of the island, where the land met the crashing waves. The air here was cooler, and the sound of the ocean was louder. She looked around, searching for the final landmark. There, half hidden by thick green bushes and draped with hanging vines, was a dark opening in the rock face. It looked exactly like the small drawing on Mr. Silas's map. It was a cave, nestled right by the sparkling blue sea. The entrance was small, almost like a secret door. Elara pushed aside the vines, her heart beating a little faster. She had found it! This must be the very special place where young Silas had hidden his precious locket, a place only he remembered from long ago. Stepping inside the cave, Elara found it cool and dim, with the sound of waves echoing softly. Her eyes scanned the rocky walls until she spotted it, a small, sturdy wooden box tucked into a narrow crack, almost hidden from view. It was covered in a fine layer of dust and felt rough to the touch, showing its great age. The box had a small, old-fashioned lock. Carefully, Elara took out the shiny silver key Mr. Silas had given her. It fit perfectly into the lock. With a soft click, the lock sprang open. A thrill of excitement ran through her. This was it! She had followed the clues, crossed the ocean, and now she was at the very doorstep of Mr. Silas's lost memory. With the box now open, Elara's hand trembled slightly as she lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded, soft velvet, lay the locket. It was just as Mr. Silas had described. A small, silver heart, slightly tarnished by time, but still beautiful. The tiny blue stone shimmered faintly, catching the dim light of the cave. With gentle fingers, Elara carefully picked it up. It felt light, but held such a heavy story. She pressed the clasp and the locket opened, revealing a tiny, faded picture of a young girl with bright, kind eyes and a sweet smile. It was Lily. Her heart swelled with a mix of triumph and tenderness. She had found it! Mr. Silas's most precious treasure, lost for so long, was now safe in her hands. With the locket carefully tucked inside her pocket, Elara knew she had to return to Mr. Silas as fast as possible. There was no time to lose. She said her goodbyes to the kind islanders, thanking them for their stories and help. They waved her off warmly as she boarded a small boat that would take her to a larger ship. This time, the journey across the ocean felt different. Instead of worry, Elara felt a joyful urgency. The sea seemed to push her onward, the wind at her back. Days blurred into a hopeful rush as she sailed, then rode a swift train, eager to bring comfort to the old man waiting in his big house. Every mile brought her closer to fulfilling her important promise. Finally, Elara arrived back at Mr. Silas's grand house. Her heart was pounding, not from the long journey, but from a mix of hope and fear. She didn't know how much time Mr. Silas had left. Without a moment's hesitation, she hurried through the quiet halls, her footsteps soft but quick. She reached his bedroom door, pushed it open gently, and stepped inside. Mr. Silas lay still in his bed, looking even weaker than when she left. His eyes were closed. "Mr. Silas?" Elara whispered, her voice full of emotion. He slowly opened his eyes, a faint light returning to them as he saw her. With a hopeful smile, Elara pulled the silver locket from her pocket and held it out for him to see. Mr. Silas's eyes widened when he saw the locket in Elara's hand. A gasp, tiny but clear, escaped his lips. His frail hand reached out, trembling, to take the silver heart. He held it gently, his thumb tracing the small blue stone. A slow, soft smile spread across his face, a smile Elara hadn't seen in all her time caring for him. It was a smile full of peace, of memories, and of a heavy burden finally lifted. He opened the locket, his eyes fixed on the faded picture of Lily. A tear, not of sadness but of deep contentment, rolled down his cheek. He looked at Elara, his eyes shining with thanks. The room felt warm, filled with a quiet joy, as Mr. Silas finally held the treasure of his youth once more. Still holding the locket, Mr. Silas looked up at Elara, his eyes soft and full of deep gratitude. His voice was a mere whisper, but it carried all the warmth of his heart. "Thank you, Elara," he breathed, a genuine smile still gracing his lips. "My dear, kind Elara, you have a truly good heart to do this for an old man. You brought back more than just a locket. You brought back peace. You brought back a piece of my past I thought was lost forever." He squeezed her hand gently, his touch light as a feather. "You are a remarkable woman, Elara. Thank you, thank you." His words were like a soft balm to Elara's tired but happy heart. All the long journey, the worries, and the hard work felt worth it in that single moment. After thanking Elara, Mr. Silas held the locket close to his chest, his eyes still fixed on Lily's tiny picture. A profound peace settled over his face, erasing the lines of worry and sickness that had been there for so long. He took a slow, deep breath, a breath that seemed to fill the quiet room with a sense of completion. Then, very gently, his eyelids fluttered closed. His grip on the locket remained soft, but still. The faint light in the room seemed to dim just a little more, and the quiet became absolute. Mr. Silas, the old millionaire, had finally found his peace, holding the most precious memory of his life as he closed his eyes for the very last time. Elara stood by Mr. Silas's bed, watching his peaceful face. A tear slipped down her own cheek, a mix of sorrow and a quiet joy. She felt a deep sadness that he was gone, that his long life had come to an end. But beneath that sadness, a warm feeling of happiness grew in her heart. She had kept her promise. She had traveled far and wide to bring him the one thing he longed for most. Seeing that gentle smile on his face, that look of perfect peace as he held Lily's locket, made all the effort worthwhile. She knew, truly knew, that she had helped him find the calm ending he wished for. It was a beautiful, bittersweet moment, knowing she had given him his last, most important gift. Days after Mr. Silas's peaceful passing, his lawyer arrived at the grand house to read his last will and testament. Elara, along with other household staff and distant relatives, gathered in the large drawing room. The lawyer, a serious man with spectacles, read aloud from the official papers. After listing gifts to family and charities, he paused, then spoke Elara's name. To Elara, my devoted caretaker, he read clearly, "For her extraordinary kindness, loyalty, and for fulfilling my deepest, most personal wish, I leave a substantial part of my fortune." Elara gasped softly, her eyes widening in surprise. She had not expected anything, only wanting to help Mr. Silas. It was a testament to his gratitude, a final thank you for her good heart. With the unexpected money from Mr. Silas, Elara could have done many things for herself. But her heart, touched by Mr. Silas's story and his last wish, guided her to help others. She remembered the kind islanders and the simple lives they led. Ilara used some of the money to build a small, bright schoolhouse on the faraway island, so the children there could learn and dream of their own futures. She also started a small fund to help older people in her own town who needed a warm meal or a helping hand. With every act of kindness, she quietly honored Mr. Silas's memory. The locket, now polished and shining, she kept safe, a reminder of the long journey, a lost love, and the powerful peace found in fulfilling a last heartfelt wish.